The American Civil Rights Movement gave us some of the most powerful, unwavering leaders our country has ever seen. Many found their place through eloquent speeches and strong messages, including someone who did it on one of the biggest of stages. I'm talking about Texas' very own Barbara Jordan.
I felt somehow for many years that George Washington and Alexander Hamilton just left me out by mistake. But through the process of amendment, interpretation, and court decision, I have finally been included in We the People.
That's the voice of Barbara Jordan, the first African-American woman elected to the Texas Senate and the first Southern African-American woman elected to the United States House of Representatives. She was known for her many moving statements and keynote addresses. But first, let's talk about how she got here. Barbara Charlene Jordan was born in Houston in 1936. She was the youngest of 3 girls. Jordan attended Phyllis Wheatley High School, where a career day speech from Edith Sampson moved her to become an attorney. Sampson was an American judge and the first black U.S. delegate appointed to the United Nations. Because of segregation, Jordan couldn't attend the University of Texas at Austin, so she became a part of the inaugural class at Texas Southern University, majoring in political science and history. It was here where Jordan started to make a name for herself. Jordan quickly became involved at Texas Southern. She joined the debate team and turned the nation's eye to this brand new university. Her team surprisingly and famously tied Harvard University's debate team in Houston. After graduating magna cum laude in 1956, she went on to get her law degree at Boston University. She was one of only 2 African-American women in her class. Jordan eventually came back to Houston, starting her own private law practice. She campaigned for a House of Representatives seat in 1962 and 1964, failing to win both times. But she did not give up and won a seat in the Texas Senate in 1966, the first African-American woman to do so. Think about Barbara Jordan's perseverance at this point in her life. She is living in the middle of the civil rights movement and consistently taking on positions where she finds herself as the only African-American woman in the room. That is dedicated determination. During her time serving in the Senate, Jordan's peers elected her as the president pro tem, becoming the first African-American female to earn this honor. So when the acting governor or lieutenant governor was out of the state, Jordan would serve as acting governor. On June 10, 1972, Jordan did just that, and becoming another first, this time, the first black chief executive in the nation.
Now it's my privilege and my honor to present to you Her Excellency, the Governor of Texas, the Honorable Barbara Jordan.
In 1972, Jordan campaigned a 3rd time for a House of Representatives seat. With her commanding voice, she gave many speeches throughout the Houston area, including telling supporters at a rally, "I'll only be one of 435, but those 434 will know I'm there." With 80% of the votes in the primary, Jordan won and became the first African-American woman in Texas to take a seat with the House of Representatives. In 1973, Jordan began to suffer from multiple sclerosis, but that didn't affect her ability to command a room. One of Jordan's biggest supporters was former President Lyndon B. Johnson, who helped her get a position with the House Judiciary Committee.
So he was very accessible. I mean, you felt you could get to him pretty, as accessible as a president could be to him.
I never had any difficulty getting through to Lyndon Johnson.
On July 25, 1974, Jordan delivered a 15-minute nationally televised speech in front of this committee. She was opening the hearings that were a part of the impeachment process against President Richard Nixon. Here's a piece of that speech, given at 2 in the morning.
My faith in the Constitution is whole, it is complete, it is total. And I am not going to sit here and be an idle spectator to the diminution, the subversion, the destruction of the Constitution.
Many people consider that these strong words from Jordan make up one of the best speeches in recent American history. Jordan stood by the Constitution and explained her support for the 5 articles of impeachment against President Nixon. Towards the end, she said that if her fellow committee members did not find the evidence convincing enough,
then perhaps that 18th century Constitution should be abandoned to a 20th century paper shredder.
after this speech, many around the nation praised Jordan for her morality and her wisdom. A couple years later, there was some buzz she could be a possible presidential running mate for Jimmy Carter from Georgia. Now, this didn't happen, but she did become the first African-American woman to give a keynote address at the Democratic National Convention.
We believe in equality for all and privileges for none.
This is just one of many speeches Jordan gave that continued to resonate with people. In 1978, Jordan declined to run for a fourth term, retiring from politics a year later. She became an adjunct professor teaching ethics at the school she once wasn't allowed into, the University of Texas at Austin, for the Lyndon B. Johnson School of Public Affairs. Even in retirement and in a wheelchair battling multiple sclerosis, Jordan came back to Washington in 1992 to be the keynote speaker at the Democratic National Convention one more time.
Our strength in this country is rooted in our diversity. Our history bears witness to that fact. E pluribus unum, from many one. It was a good idea when the country was founded, and it's a good idea today.
Jordan died from pneumonia in Austin, Texas on January 17, 1996. More than 1,500 people poured into the Good Hope Missionary Baptist Church in Houston to remember, celebrate, and honor Barbara Charlene Jordan. From a young girl in Houston to a debate star at Texas Southern to one of the strongest voices in Washington, D.C., Jordan left an impact on Texas and this nation. She spoke with confidence and conviction, no matter the stage. I'd like to leave you with part of an interview with Jordan from 1985, where she spoke on the current state of equality and justice in America.
All I can say is that equality and justice remain in our ethical and idealistic view of what the United States of America ought to be. And I believe that on both those issues, equality and justice, things are happening quickly. And I do think that I will live long enough to say, in reality, equality is real and not illusory, and that justice is fact and not fiction.